Capital. Hey everyone, this is Dave from Native Community Capital. This is an episode on finance we did with the guys from Your Auntie's Favorite Podcast, a special native banker guest, and myself. It's an edited version, so if you enjoyed some down-to-res earth humor, make sure to check out the full version and all Your Auntie's Favorite podcasts on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, the opinions expressed are those of the individual and not necessarily those of their employers. Enjoy.
We wanted to welcome two of our guests on the pod today. We're going to have a different type of episode today. It's kind of like a bonus episode. And we're going to put our bookworm hats on today. And we're going to be talking about banking and economic development. And we have two of our guests, Dave and Veronica. I'll let you guys introduce yourself and just tell us how you guys doing today.
Good. Yeah, no, thanks for having us on, and Veronica, thanks for coming on too. I didn't want to be the old guy here, and
that's Hirsch.
Yeah, welcome to your uncle's pod.
Hey, yeah, no, doing good, thanks. And Dave Castillo, and I'm down here in the Phoenix metro area, and we have a little nonprofit here, and we make loans for small business and homes on the reservation.
You forgot to say your clans.
And Auntie's, he's taken, he's happily married.
Oh, yeah. Auntie's chill.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely I'm what's a shadane for people out there in Sanasti and the Kachikai area. So that's where my wife's from. And I originally grew up in California. My mom's native, but from Mexico. So, and if I start referencing 80s bands, you'll know how old I am. And pre-internet stuff. So I'm still getting used to all this technology.
Welcome to the internet.
Welcome to the internet. What about you, V-Lane? Give us a little bit of about your background.
Sure. My name is Veronica. Hi, everybody. I live here in Denver. I'm originally from Tulsa, New Mexico, just outside of Gallup area. So live and work in Denver. I work for a bank. We're a native-owned bank. And know Dave's through just banking stuff and financing stuff and working in Indian country. So we primarily work with, I say small businesses, but not like probably super small businesses that Dave works with. We don't do micro lending. So for us, like a small business loan, depending on the product, starts at anywhere from like 100,000 to 250,000. Then we can go up to pretty much whatever. So multi-million dollars.
Damn. Boss babe.
Yeah. Do you still call yourself the banking baddie?
I don't call myself that. Let's just be clear.
So one word that I caught from your introduction, Veronica, you said micro lending. So basically you're saying like, I don't mess with the chump change down there. I only do big investments, and yes, right? Yeah.
To make it really clear, if you applied for a loan with me, Hirsch, I'd say, sorry, you're chump change for me.
Hey, my credit score is pretty good. Well, we'll talk about that.
Dang, you hear that, Auntie's? He's got a good credit score.
And he's got good hair, remember? A couple episodes we're trying to give you away.
So, Veronica, you said you're from New Mexico. Delmar said all the natives from New Mexico are Yannis. Is that true?
No, he's just jealous because he's not from New Mexico. He's from Lame, Utah. Who the heck is from Utah?
Yeah, who would claim Utah?
Exactly. If I was from Utah, I would say I'm from Northern Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dave? You said you're from California. Are you like, what part of California is that?
Yeah, like Central Coast. So grew up listening to
like
punk
in the
rock
barrio
and surfing. Nah, I mean, it's all ag towns out that way. So it's what they say, where the meth meets the ocean, I guess.
Meth meets the ocean. Nice.
Wow.
It was a little rough. It was a little rough growing up.
Was it really? Dang, I bet you Dave can fight.
I bet you. Not with that voice. His voice is like he'll smooth talk himself out of the conversation or any kind of dispute.
So Dave,
not a fighter.
How about your business? How long have you been doing your business?
Yeah, I started doing this stuff on the policy side, helping at the Intertribal Council. We used to do work with the tribal leadership there. And yeah, it was kind of it's one of those things where, a lot of times you have mentors who kind of tell you how to do things, and then you have those mentors that say, go do it. And so I remember sitting behind one of the tribal leaders at a meeting with Senator McCain, and that tribal leader was saying, well, here's the issue. And he kind of turns around, looks at me. I was sitting behind him, and this young man's going to explain it to you. And I just thought, well, I know the issue because I researched it. I wrote the briefing paper for you, Chairman. But so that's kind of how it started, right?
Veronica, how'd you get involved in your career?
I started out, I went to business school in undergrad. I got an accounting degree. Knew I didn't want to be a CPA. I just wanted to have the foundation. If you understand accounting, you can understand anything related to business. And then started working in corporate America. I actually didn't go into Indian country. Worked in corporate America for a long time, primarily in finance. Was pretty much an analyst my entire career. And then I ran into some people who worked at the bank, and they got me on, and it was right after I had finished my MBA. So it was really good timing. And so then I got my graduate degree, got my MBA, a master's in business administration, and then started working at the bank. I came on as a analyst, actually, a credit analyst. So I did the credit side. So when you go to apply for a loan, we're called underwriters, meaning we are the ones who are doing all of the number crunching and writing up the whole proposal for your loan request to get approved by our credit committee. So that's what I did. And then I did that for probably 3 years, and then moved over to the lending side, which is more like business development and going out and doing relationship building. So going out and actually like finding loans for us to give to tribes, native owned businesses, tribal enterprises, tribal entities. So yeah, so I've been at the bank for over 6 years now, which is crazy. So my first time working in Indian country, that's how I started meeting Dave. And that's actually how I met all of you guys. So yeah, that's my story.
Dang. Straight from the banker baddie's mouth.
I mean, just the concept of finance. I've always wondered how it was. I mean, it was introduced to us by trading posts in Indian country, and I think I had a conversation with my grandpa about this, how they were able to get credit at the trading posts for year round to get supplies and whatnot for their family. But when it came to like woolly, when it came to sheep, when it came to the woolly, when they shed their wool, during the summertime or springtime or even fall time, like that was their way of paying back their interest or paying back their finance at these trading posts. And I was just sharing the story with my grandpa over the weekend, which was interesting. That kind of plays in play with what we're talking about here. It's like that's the introduction of finance and that Western ways of looking at credit scores and stuff like that. So just to share.
Yeah. Well, today's pretty much topic is, access to capital. And that's really what Dave and Veronica specialize in, is getting money to tribes and to individuals, because it's difficult to get money. And I think that's what the topic is today. So Dave, Veronica, tell us why is it difficult?
I mean, that's kind of the misnomer too, though, right? I mean, because there's all kinds of cash rolling through Navajo Nation. It's just the wrong kind of cash. I mean, I think they say there's more payday lenders around Navajo Nation than any other place in the state. And no coincidence, it's also got the highest poverty rate and, the largest population of natives. So it's not that there's a lack of cash. It's the wrong kind of cash. And I think Veronica working, in the private sector and me working on the nonprofit sector, I think we need them both. We need more natives in the private sector, and we need less bankers in the nonprofit sector, right? So that we could come at it together in different ways. I literally had a guy from a foundation who was supposed to be giving money away, right? I mean, they already get the benefit from giving the money away through, their tax by not having to to pay taxes, right? Foundations are nonprofit. They don't have to pay taxes, but in exchange for that, they got to give some money away. So they already get the benefit. And he comes and asks me, why should I invest in your nonprofit, which is making loans to natives, at 2% when I could get, a lot more than that by just investing in the stock market, and I said, I have no idea why you would do that. I mean, because you're supposed to be the chairman of this committee who's supposed to be supporting Native initiatives. And, I mean, if you want to make money, go make money. If you want to help support tribal economies, then let's talk about, less than 2%. So, and the problem with that is that the guy was a banker. And when they talked to me about doing this job, I didn't have a banking background. I didn't even have my advanced degree at that point. And, they told me, we specifically don't want a banker because we don't want someone who's coming at this from just, how we make money off of this. So, it's both and, it's not just one or the other. We need to have kind of good lending practices. If we're not around to do this, then, what's the point? So we got to be smart about what we do. But by the same token, we need folks who are trained bankers, to set the standard and push the boundaries of what some banks won't do. And that's why Veronica's bank is so special, because, there are not a whole lot of banks that are going after, that kind of business and even interested in natives. So, I mean, I think it takes all of us. And, why is it hard to get access to money? Part of the problem is it's too easy, right? You go into a payday lender shop and they don't ask you any questions. You come to me, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions because, so you pay for what you get, right? I mean, you're going to pay through the nose 700% interest on an annualized basis. I mean, at a payday lender, or I could give you a loan at 8% if it makes sense. And so that's kind of the price you pay, is kind of that scrutiny, asking about your credit score, asking about, how you run your business. But too many people, go for the easy money and then they end up paying for it. So that's what I think me and Veronica are trying to do, is just kind of, do this in a way that doesn't exploit people. Because, like the trading post situation, right? I mean, yeah, they provided people credit for what they needed, but was that fair? I don't know that we got the records to look at, but I'm just guessing that, even if you just look at, I don't want to name them all, right? All the different pawn shops, all the well-known kind of pawn shops, and
just name them, man. Call them out.
Yeah, well, there's one that does Indian days every year, and they serve a lot of beer, and they thank their native customers for pawning their stuff at their stores, and they become very wealthy at that.
Damn.
I mean, is that a good deal?
Hey Hirsch, which pawn shop do you go to?
Shout out to Moore's Pawn here in Winslow.
I mean, which ones?
I know, right? Shit.
I think all of us have driven our relatives around to make payments, right?
Mhm.
Like you stop at every pawn shop along the way, try to get your stuff out of dead pawn. I mean, it's painful.
That's an interesting idea. Just like thinking about payday loans, and that's why I was kind of fixated on micro lending, like you were specifically talking about, Veronica. So would micro lending be like, if I needed to borrow, let's say $4,000?
Yeah.
Would that be a micro loan?
Yeah, it varies, but pretty much I think for us, we consider anything under 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just on the smaller side of lending. I do want to go back to payday loans though, because I feel like, have you guys ever walked through sort of like the number calculations, like if you take out a payday loan?
Mm-hmm. I mean, briefly.
Delmar, I know probably you have, but it's very interesting. So I was explaining this to someone, and I was trying to put it as in like as much layman terms so they could understand, because they were like, oh, well, I just get like $100 and all I have to do is pay $15 on top of that 2 weeks later. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, do you understand like how much that $15 equates to? Like if you don't pay that off. And I feel like the problem with payday lending is not everybody pays it off. And
Yeah.
that's where they get killed.
They just pay the $15 and extend it for another month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the interest rate, basically.
Yeah, I think as natives, one thing that we fail to understand is this idea of monthly payments. Because, like, you can go to, let's say, a car lender and say, he'll be like, what do you want your monthly payment at? I can get it to 400. But how's he doing that? He's extending you, like, let's say, putting you in a 10-year loan or something. And it's like, it doesn't make sense because your car depreciates by the time, even before you're done paying off that car. It's like we're not asking the right questions. I mean, I'll share a personal story. My mom just sent me the title to my first car like not too long ago, and I saw the interest rate that she was paying on the vehicle, and I was like, I mean, it was above. Okay, it was about 10%, which isn't. I don't know. Maybe about 5-10 years ago that might have been in line, but for me, I wouldn't pay that right now. I'd go on to, like, let's say, Capital One Auto, and I can just pull up. They can give me a pre-approval, and I'll be like, that's how I negotiate with the lenders at car dealerships.
Yeah. Shout out to
but
Capital
think
One.
about that, right? I mean, why can you get that rate, right? I mean, they're going to look at kind of your credit history. They're going to look at your income, and most people that we work with do not have that, right? So we had a gal who, I think I've told this story before too, but it's recent, and it's pretty, I think everyone gets caught up in this. So she makes pottery, and she wanted a little kind of workshop for her pottery, and she wanted to have it be like a studio. So when people came by, she has shelving and stuff. So she bought this shed, from Grants, for $7,000, right? And then she gets home and she starts making the payments, and she looks at the paperwork, and it says it's going to cost her $13,000 by the time she's done paying for it. And she said, and I just don't even have enough. I want to be able to put in a skylight. I want to put in some shelving. I'll put some tile. I want to put some drywall up so it looks nice. And I want a little bit of, storage behind it. And she said, but I don't know why it says 13,000 when I went to go get it, it was 7,000. I said, well, send me the agreement. And sure enough, they were charging her 60% interest. 60%.
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a lot.
Even if you got bad credit, you can get a credit card for what, 23%,
23.
which isn't great, but it ain't 60%. And so we're like, let's pay that off, and we'll get you a loan at 8%, and your payment will be lower, and we'll be able to give you the extra cash to put in the drywall and, the lighting and all the stuff you want. But the problem was that she was too embarrassed to ask. She said, I didn't know. And I felt dumb asking, and I don't even know why my payments are like that. So, that Capital One loan for your car, Delmar, I mean, 10% was probably a really good rate for your mom, right?
Probably, I would assume so.
But I mean, I know someone who, told me the story about going into town. Her dad was real thrilled, because they were going to get a new truck. They go into Gallup, and by the time it was all said and done, they had their truck. But her dad was really pissed, and he told them on the drive back home, he said, this is why you're not going to learn Navajo. This is why you need to speak English, because if you don't speak English right, you're going to get cheated, just like we got cheated today. And that sucks. I mean, that stayed with her. That's the story. That's why she can't really speak Navajo. And so, I mean, you cringe a little bit when someone pays 10% for something, but it's much worse than that. Much worse. And not just the interest rate, but those horrible situations where someone really got jacked, and they know they got jacked, and they feel helpless and can't do anything about it.
I want to share my story. I feel like I need to, because some of my friends are listening right now. They're going to be like, man, Herschel, come you didn't share your story, your first auto, like when I purchased my first vehicle, like I think it was back in 2009. So Flagstaff, shout out to Oxendale Kia, fuck them. Sorry, my English, but shit. My story is, okay, I go in there, I look around, and then basically I drove off the lot, not signing documents, but he told me to sign certain documents that I needed just to drive it off the lot. And I come back because I put $1,500 down, and he told me to come back next week, come back with another $1,000, and altogether be a $2,500 down payment. So I said, okay, so you need to sign these papers just to get it off the lot and get insurance and whatnot. Not knowing what the hell I was signing. This is probably like when I was in college and whatnot. And I look at it a week later, and I noticed my interest rate is at 24.9%. And I was like, what? Roughly 25% is the interest rate. And I was like, fuck. And I didn't know what to do. So I called the guy up, and he's like, no, it's yours. All you need to do is send in $1,000, and it's your vehicle. You signed it off. You left the lot and everything. Man, I like that. To me, like, the salesperson basically just ripped me off. But at the same time, I didn't understand what I was signing. I didn't understand. I wasn't educated on this shit. This was like in 2009. So basically what I did is I just voluntarily just did a repo. I didn't know, because I'm not going to pay fucking for that money. So I just volunteered and told him to take the vehicle. And I left it on the lot. So I don't know, that it did come back as a repo, but it cleared after, like, I think in 2016 it cleared or some shit like that.
Ding, so it ding you dinged your credit.
And that's what I mean by, like, I built my credit score today where I'm like confident, I'm happy where I'm at. Like it's at a good rate, where it's like the shit that I went through with that was horrible. But I sacrificed it knowing, but I blame myself, but at the same time, I think the dealerships do this shit a lot.
Okay.
And because he told me straight up, like, I mean, I signed some documents that I didn't know I was signing the contract, the actual contract. And he said, just sign this and you come back, then we'll sign the original contract. That's what he told me.
So for both of you guys, the two people in finance, is there a way that Hirsch could have remedied this situation?
$5 word.
Read the dots.
I would say, just off the top of my head, like, Hirsch, what you could have done, because that's your monthly APR. So you could have stuck it out maybe for a few months and then refinanced it to see if you could find a lower rate. That would probably have been the best bet.
Maybe.
And you probably could have. That's what I'm helping my mom with right now, because my mom is in the process of rebuilding her credit at the moment. And so she just tried to refinance her initial purchase, but they came back and said, you're on the right track, whatever, but come back in early next year. And by that time, we should be able to save you money on the rate and lower your APR. So that should be what you could have done. And it should be what anybody is doing if they're in the same situation right now. I also want to add on to that, because car dealerships, they're just like really sketchy. They're really on par with the payday lenders, because I like Delmar, I just recently bought a car, or he didn't buy a car, but I went in with a pre-approved, like, I knew what my rate was going to be, have excellent credit. So I already knew, like, going in. They ran my credit because they wanted to see if they could get me. They always want you to go with their in-house financing. That's their number one goal, and you have to know that.
And why is that?
It's probably because they're making money for their company. It's like Toyota and then Toyota Financial. There
was actually a auto executive who said something like that. He said, back in the 70s, we used to be a car manufacturer that happened to make loans to some of our customers. Now we're a bank that happens to make cars. They're making more money on the financing. I mean, if you look all the different revenue streams, there's another fancy word, all the different ways that the dealer's making money, whether it's on selling you the undercoating, or doing the financing, or doing the the detail work, or your prepaid maintenance. I mean, they're making it 7 or 8 different ways. And the big part of it is the financing.
Yep. Yeah. So I went in, they ran my credit. She came out and she was like, or not her, but like the finance guy came out, and he was like, here's what I got you approved at. It was like 4% more than what I had already been pre-approved. And I was like, a word. I was like, man. So I was like, no, I'm not going with that. I'm not signing that. I already have. And I told him, I was like, I'm already pre-approved for this rate. Like, why would you even offer me that? And he probably just didn't, like, I'm sure he was not told that every day. And he was like, oh, okay. And then after that, it was a completely different conversation that he was having with me, because I was like, hey buddy, don't fucking bullshit with me. Like, I know what you're talking about. And then finally he was like, oh, you work at a bank. And I was like, yes, I do.
That's so funny. I once got in an
Yeah.
argument over basis points on my loan because the guy was like, it's only going to save you $12 a year if we just, and I was like, no, it's the principle now, because if you don't come back and give me this, I'm not going to sign here.
Yeah.
But I guess if Hirsch has a terrible story about getting into a crappy loan, my first credit card, I got one of those ones in the mail, and like the ones that have the fine print that says open this credit card, you'll get approved for $500 line of credit. But then they don't tell you, they immediately charge you like a $200 or $300 fee. So you open this credit card and you already have $3,000 or $300 in debt, and so you only have $200 of like credit to use. That was my first experience with a credit card, and I was so mad. But I mean, it goes back to not really understanding a lot about this stuff. And for me, I mean, what I do now, like that would never happen to anyone that I know personally, and I wouldn't let it happen again to any of my friends. But for me, it's just kind of interesting because of where we're at in our like careers. And so it's kind of an embarrassing story, if I'm being honest.
But I think there's
It
a few
is.
things going on here, right? I mean, like Hirsch, your credit score is good, and you've worked hard on it. I mean, all of us has probably done the same, but what happens when there's an emergency? What happens when we just need something or our relatives need something, right? You don't kind of go into that calculation of like, oh, let me see how this is going to affect my, long-term finance situation. It's like, no, you just take care of it, right? How many times have, people gone to a funeral home and everyone signs, right, the credit check, right? Who's gonna be able to do this? And so people just step forward. And I think, like when a relative passes away, you go around and you do those family meetings, right? You're trying to raise some cash, and that's what most folks have to do because they can't get that cash. But if you can and you're desperate, you might just kind of get into that situation and not ask the question. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just like, there's people like us out there that kind of work in this area. Just pick up the phone. There's so much information online. But I think there's kind of just a lot of people haven't made peace with the money demon. I mean, it's just this idea of, money issues, we don't talk about it. Or crazy things. People kind of joke about it, right? Like, I'm going to take, this money I got and go invest it at the casino, right?
Invest it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Chance.
it's kind of a joke, but it's, sometimes people kind of believe that, I'm going
That's
to make
what
my
Hirsch
money
did
back.
with his relief, his hardship check.
Yeah.
I'm helping our nomination enterprises support them.
Well, I mean, people say that, right? People say that
Yeah,
like
they do.
lotteries are the poor man's tax. If you go down to,
Mhm.
I won't name it, but I think it's called Fire Rock. I mean, it's kind of like a self-imposed tax. And, I don't want to diss Nomination Enterprise and stuff like that, but this is, it's one thing for folks who've kind of, I don't know, have been fortunate enough to kind of get into a career where money isn't as much of an issue. But I mean, way too many of my relatives are either on the edge of poverty or deep poverty, or if they're not,
Mhm.
have some pretty serious social issues that thinking about money and how to plan for money is a luxury, right? It's not something that, I mean, it's
Yeah,
something
man.
that you can do if you have the
You got
resources to do
you
that.
got to
Otherwise,
have
you're just
money to
surviving.
plan for money.
Yeah. So what do you
Yeah.
do? So what do you do when folks, I mean, how do you help someone who's kind of in that situation? And I
Yeah.
mean, part of it is just being there, whether it's Veronica's bank or our organization, so that someone can come and they're like, well, why am I paying 13,000 for this thing? And I still need, the lights and I still need to buy, like, we have someone who makes oven bread. She's like, I got to buy this $3,800 dough machine, mixing machine. How am I going to do that? It's just like, well, let's figure it out together. I mean, I'm glad you asked. And, sometimes it's kind of like okay, look at all this debt you're carrying. Let's do a debt consolidation loan, free up some cash so you're not spending all your money paying at 200, 300% interest. We'll save you some money there. We'll invest in the machine, but we gotta talk about these things. Like, you've got like
Dave,
5 payday lenders. Like, stop doing that.
yeah. So Dave, what about somebody who has like, because the way I see it, like if you accumulate a lot of debt, then your whatever debt to income ratio or your credit usage percentage is going to be high, and that's going to bring down your credit score. Can you still consolidate debt even though the person has a low credit score because their credit usage is so high?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
we
do you
can do
work with
that. I
them?
mean,
Do you work with
that's
them?
kind of a special product, but it
Mhm.
goes along with, that education, right?
Yeah.
And it's like someone told me, I was talking to one of the tribal program directors, and I said, what do you think about, because we were talking about a client that we both share. And she said, you know what? Every situation is different, right? I mean, we can only help folks who want help, right? And we don't know what their situation is. Maybe their spouse died, maybe their child died, maybe they lost a job, or maybe they got a drug problem, you know?
So
And
do
the
those
way
things
you
play a
deal with
factor
what's
into
that?
those things play a factor into if you deal with them or
Yeah,
not?
yeah. Because the question is, like, do you want to get with the plan? Because if you're asking me to help you, here's kind of how I can help, right? But it means that you're agreeing to kind of play by a certain set of rules, which means, stop going to the payday lender, right? Like, let's look at kind of where all your money's going. Oh, okay. You know, Going to the casino is not investing your money. That's, you know, probably not a good way to spend your money, or just something simple, right? It's, let's look at kind of how you spend your money. And I was like, oh, okay, you're running down to Phoenix every weekend. You're, whether it's basketball games or whatever, like maybe once a month, maybe stop. That's expensive, right?
Mm.
So it's having that conversation, and I think that's what, a payday lender doesn't care, right? They're like,
Yeah.
sign right here, we'll give you the money. We don't care what you do with it,
Mhm.
because you'll come
Yeah,
back to
your
us.
credit report.
Yeah. So we can help there. But and this is kind of where our investors and our allies, like at these foundations, really, where we really need them, right? Because
Mhm.
it costs a lot to do this. I mean, it's a lot of intense, cost a lot. There's a lot of hours involved, and who's going to pay for it, So I think that's where a lot of our partners from foundations and others have been really helpful. I was like, hey, here's just a grant, because we know that education's important, and you can do the best job because they trust you. And otherwise, what are your options? A lot of times your options are, yeah, do those family meetings, try to collect money from friends and family who knew your relative, or go to someone who doesn't care anything about you and will make you a loan and charge you through the nose. So it's just important to have these options available. And there's a lot more we could do if we're able to have that conversation. And then we'll see it in tribal court if if it turns out that it didn't
Isn't that
work
right?
out.
Mhm.
To
What
add
what
on to that a little bit, Adrian, for what we do, and I don't know, Dave, if you guys do this on your types of loans, but we'll like bake in what we call covenants, and they're kind of just like rules for the borrower. We'll be like, you can't get into any debt greater than X amount without our approval, because we're really making sure that you meet your like debt to equity ratios at the end of the year or whenever they're being measured. We run a soft pull of their credit report for the guarantors or people who own the business on an annual basis, because we review our loans annually to do like a checkup on them. And we'll if we see something on there, we'll ask the borrower to clarify. And that's even like after they get approved. Even before they get approved, we kind of do the same thing. If there's something negative on their credit report as like the business owner, because we look at business owners credit reports too, which a lot of people are always surprised about. And we'll give them the option to explain the situation. And if we are comfortable with that explanation, then we can definitely kind of just say, okay, we understand that happened and we understand that's not going to happen again or in the immediate future. So that's, I don't know, Dave, do you do that too to help like your lenders or your borrowers stay on track?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're a lot smaller shop than you are, and we're just now getting regulated. So we're tightening up. We used to be a lot looser in terms of how we did those things. But yeah, I mean, usually um, we do go back and we have the covenants, just as you say. I mean, our loan docs are pretty solid, but it's more about kind of trying to balance being in community with folks who we're serving, and being that kind of um responsible party, with other people's money, because we borrow other money from investors and get it from Department of Treasury and other. And again, like I said, if we just blow it all, then we can't do this anymore. So we've got to do that. But I think more than anything, for the clients that we're serving, I think there's kind of a range, if you will, right? I mean, there's those folks who really aren't going to be able to get into one of our larger business loans. And so we have to start them out, kind of with a debt consolidation loan and see how they do with that. And then, kind of move them through and hopefully graduate them so that they can use our bigger dollars or even someone else's money. But I think the biggest issue is still one of, I don't know how else to call it, just that money demon, right? I mean, and just kind of the luxury of being able to kind of think about these things. So I think really what it comes down to is being able to kind of have these discussions, like talk about those horror stories, right? Like getting jacked by that dealership in Gallup or wherever, and kind of like, not feel like a victim, but say, wait a second, how can we do this better? And that happens. Like if you go to Old Town, right, in Albuquerque or Scottsdale, or like, how come there's no native owned galleries? Like, what's up with that?
And
Right.
it's on native
There's
land.
one now in Albuquerque, and I think there's one in Scottsdale now. But like, why aren't we doing that? Like, why are all the the pawn shops owned by East Asians or whatever? Why aren't we just kind of pulling our own cash together and taking care of ourselves? So that's kind of what we're about. I think that's what Veronica's bank is about, is like, let's stop relying on these non-Indians to do us any favors. Let's just figure it out for ourselves. And I mean, that's what's happening when you do your family meetings, right? You're helping each other out, but it's small scale. Like, we need more than that. Like, if someone needs, it's one thing to buy it, to pay $3,800 for a laser engraver or a dough mixer or whatever kind of equipment you need. It's a whole other thing when you need to start a business, and it's really going to cost $400,000 to get the machines and get the electric hookups and everything. Well, where's $400,000 going to come from? Right? You can't do that by going around to your friends and family. I mean, you can if you're like from, whatever, living in Silicon Valley and your family's, you're, because that's true, right? Like, there are some people that go around and raise $500,000 from their friends and family, right? There are some friends and families like that. That ain't my friends and family. So who's going to do that 400,000? And it's got to be us. So, but we got to be able to have that conversation. And these financial covenants that you're talking about, I mean, that's just kind of standard practice. But even before that, we got to be having a conversation. And I think that's what Veronica was kind of mentioning, the underwriting, right? We're looking through everything. And one of our attorneys, she's got this thing, we were looking at a deal, and she's like, Dave, what is my favorite saying? And I was like, I know. No, tell me what my favorite saying is. I'm like, don't go into business who you don't want to be a litigant in court with. Because if this thing goes bad, and now you're financing it, you're on the hook. So yeah, we've come across some folks, and that's a big part of it too, is like, let's have the conversation, and let's have an honest conversation. And are you really paying attention? Are you trying to jack me now? Because we've had that situation too, where someone comes forward and they're like, well, here's the collateral or whatnot. And then we kind of do a search, and the title search or whatever is like, wait a second, and something's just funny about it. And we confront them with it. And I actually had someone say this. I was like, man, I'm a native business owner, and you're a native organization, and just stop doing this. Just make me the loan already. I'm not going to explain why, my credit score looks like this. I'm not going to explain what's wrong with this document that you found. I don't know anything about that. Just make the loan, take it or leave it. And I'm like, brother, I think I'm going to have to leave it, because if you're not going to answer this question, I
Yeah.
can't do this. But we got to have the conversation. We got to be honest, and we got to be, like we say, just kind of like those family meetings, be a good relative to each other. Like, I'm not trying to jack you here, but I expect also not to get jacked. So,
but
That's
going back
interesting.
to financial literacy and the inability to like access this information. I mean, we talk about like doing the job and doing the work and helping people understand finance. The problem is there's no money in that for any of us. Like I mean, as philanthropic as we want to be, it's a difficult task, and someone has to pay for the time that people are taking out of their day to like teach someone about just basic things that we just talked about. So yeah, I
and
think what I'm getting at is like I think we need to explore different mediums of trying
mm,
to get this information across. So I believe you're attempting, or you and your company are attempting to do that with your YouTube series, right?
yeah. So, I mean, really, we're trying to do three things there, right? I mean, because there's so much anxiety around these issues, like, I'll tell you, for every 10 people that come to us, we only finance one, right? And usually that's because people get intimidated. They see the checklist of things they got to turn in, and they're like, yeah, no, my credit's bad. I don't know what it is, but I know it's bad, so I'm just not even going to finish the application. And then the people that do finish the application, yeah, their credit's bad. So we can't finance them, or we got to do something before we can finance them, like do some education. And so, yeah, the first thing with that YouTube series of videos is just kind of like, let's kind of reduce the anxiety. Let's talk about a few things that you should know, and then, pick up the phone, just know that we're here. I mean, just even that, something as simple as like, we're here. We had a woman from Laguna who just lives up the road from our office, and she's like, I didn't even know you guys were here. It's like, we've been here 10 years, you know? Um,
Jeez.
so, but guess what? Everyone knows where all the pawn shops are at,
I really
right?
like that idea, like the growing them into like different loans. I like the idea of reconciliation loans, because people don't really understand the value of consolidating your debt. Like I did it with I don't know if you guys are aware of that website Lending Club.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty easy to do it, and I did it just because I wanted a better understanding of how that works. So I was like, oh, I'll take out some cash and get these credit cards all into one payment. So like just simple things like that can help people out a lot, like native people. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do they access that? That's strange thing. But what size loans, like what's the smallest amount of money you guys have lended out, Dave?
Yeah, so I should mention that we're the product of a merger, right? I was doing
Mhm.
this for since 2009, and then in 2019 we merged with two other organizations, and one of the groups was doing very small, debt consolidation loans, and another group was doing construction loans on the reservation, and then we were doing business loans and project financing for tribes. So we brought all that together. So yeah, the smallest loan we've done, I mean, has been like $1,500.
Okay.
But we're kind of moving away from that.
That's
We
not
started
bad.
another nonprofit who's just going to focus on the small dollar loans, and then we'll focus exclusively on the home loans and the smaller size business loans, anything under 250,000. But yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's building it. It's building it ourselves for ourselves, in a way that like I say, we come together for all kinds of different reasons, right? Um, Sometimes not great reasons, but we come together anyway. But
Mhm.
I'm not looking at anyone in
So
particular,
Dave,
but we could come together around better options for, for getting access to cash, and that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to do.
Yeah, you could make those micro loans and then package them and securitize them and have someone invest in them,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
8% is very attractive to some people.
yeah, that's right.
Dave, earlier you mentioned that you a lot of your time you're spending educating not the people about their credit or whatnot, but you're educating the institutions and
Yeah.
trying to tell them what they could be doing to be more effective or be better at what they're doing. What do you what are those conversations like what are you telling them?
They're tough, man. I mean, those are tough conversations because I think, if you think about payday lenders, are like, look, we're just offering a service that's in demand. I mean, if people didn't need us, they wouldn't come to us. So what's wrong with it? And guess what? This is America. I mean, if you're offended by me making money off of other people, well, I mean, you can move to communist China. I mean, that's the kind of tone, right? And and it's pervasive. I mean, it's everywhere. Every native that I know that has gone to work at a high level, executive level in corporate America, they're, I mean, everyone's doing the Indian 101. It's like, all right, folks, I am a real Native American. We still exist. No, I don't live in the teepee. Yes, we need cash for our businesses, and it's just frustrating, right? So it's a frustrating conversation to have because I think a lot of folks have kind of this romanticized notion of what Native people are like. And doesn't the federal government take care of you guys? Don't you
Yeah.
guys have casinos?
Free
Like
education, free housing.
seriously, I mean, people are at like zero. They're at zero. And I don't
Free
mind if this
healthcare.
guy's listening right now because I've already beat him up, in a good way, right? In a good way, like edificate, like I'm disciplining you because I love you type thing. There's this group that says, well, we serve the poorest of the poor. I was like, well, how much cash has actually gone to Indian country? Oh, zero? Well, you either need to stop saying that you help the poorest of the poor or actually do it. And so to his credit, he's like, all right, got my attention.
Yeah.
How do we do that? I was like, all right, you ready? Sit down because it's going to cost you. It's going to be expensive. You haven't done nothing for the last 20 years. And, I said, I understand that that we don't want to put some quota in place that is arbitrary, that just pull it out of the thin air. But by the same token, the number should not be zero in terms of what you're putting out there. So they're tough conversations. They're important conversations to have. I think you got to be able to do it in a way that, with some compassion. Don't attack the people, but attack the issue. And as long as you do that, I think we'll be in a good place. But it's hard because, people are suffering, and you all know that. I mean, and we don't have to look that much farther than ourselves, right? I mean, if we look at some of the tribal departments who get, whatever, I mean, Navajo Nation got $1.2 billion. And I think it's easy for people to say, what are you guys doing? Like, we're suffering here. Like, my uncle's sleeping in his truck and we don't have running water. What are you guys doing? So it's all of us. It takes all of us. Sometimes I think it's good to be able to kind of play good cop, bad cop. I'll go in there and I'll nail someone on something, and then Veronica come in and, with her beautiful earrings and that lovely smile and just say, hey, don't worry. We've got a solution for this. We're actually working on this. And here's a way that we can do this. Dave gets a little hot-headed here, but we've got a solution, and let me help you help us type thing. Mm-hmm. So it's tough. I think we got a long way to go. I mean, we got a long way to go with our own people. We got a long way to go with our own tribal governments. We got a long way to go with people in philanthropy. We got a long way to go with people in industry and in the public sector. So, that's it. It's the work. And, we're fortunate to be able to do this as our jobs. So, I think just kind of, say a little prayer, put a little tadadin out there,
a little sage
and then get to work, because we got a lot of it to do.
Veronica, do you think, like, in your work or like in the corporate world, and Delmar just told me that he got back from the NAFOA conference and that there was a lot of white people there, and I was wondering, do you think like they get even taken advantage of on that level sometimes?
You mean native businesses?
Yeah, well, like native business, like maybe tribes that are trying to get loans from banks to finance their projects.
I don't think they're necessarily getting taken advantage of. I think if a tribe or a tribal enterprise is getting a loan from one of the big banks, it's because that big bank is cherry picking the loans that they can provide. They're not willing to do the loans that take a lot of work. They're willing to do like the easy loans, like casino lending, or, just different types of lending that they have the capacity for like super large projects and things that are just easy to do in Indian country. And that's sort of like where we specialize at my bank is we take a look at like really tough projects. We definitely are in the trenches with like dealing with all of the nuances that financing projects in Indian country face. People who do want to support, us being a native bank and banking native and keeping money in Indian country, because on our lending portfolio, 95% of our loans made is to Indian country, native owned businesses, to tribes, tribal enterprises, on res, off res. We do everything in Indian country, and it's really why we were formed. So I think it just depends on what like tribes are looking for and what they're looking to do. Dave, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of taking this conversation in a totally different direction, I mean, I think it comes down to something really basic, which is, because the question was, are tribes getting taken advantage of by all these folks that are coming to native conferences and looking for their business? I think I would ask a different question, which is, how vital do the folks that come to Indian country or to tribes or to serve native people, how vital are they long term? And think about it in a relationship way, right? Like if your partner kind of doesn't believe that you are vital to the to the family, like how long is that relationship going to last? As opposed to if they say, I'm committed and I'm counting on you and I want you to count on me, right? We got some tough things to deal with, but we're going to do this together because we're committed to this. And I'm committed to you and we want this to work, as opposed to someone who just kind of comes by. I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but, just like, hey, let's have some fun, I don't know where this is going, but what the hell, let's just kind of party and see what happens. Like, is that, and you could say the same thing in business, right? Like a lot of business folks, who are kind of looking to make money. They're like, look, I think we could exploit this opportunity here. There's a lot of money to be made here. And if we play our cards right, all we got to do is kind of come in on a white horse and kind of, flash the money that we've got available for this and, schmooze them. And that happens a lot, right? Let's take the tribal chairman out for chicken dinner. Let's take him to whatever establishment you might think that individual would be interested in going to, so it's really about relationships when it comes down to it, I think. And that's why I always say, someone comes to us and they're a non-native institution. They're like, well, we want to really build an Indian practice. We really want to serve tribes. It's like, okay, how many natives you got working for you? Oh, none? I don't know. It's kind of a red flag. How much do you really want to serve natives? If you want to serve natives, there's an institution I'm thinking of right now. It's like, okay, you've got a bunch of natives working for you, but none of them are executives. None of them are. Have you offered them kind of an ownership stake in the business? Because you're making a lot of money off of natives and you ain't got any natives in the ownership structure. So what's going on there?
Good point.
Like, what's the relationship really? Is it one of exploitation, or is it one of, I want to be a good partner, I want to be part of this long term?
Yeah, I think the discussion that me and Adrian were having earlier was a discussion about all the non-native faces I seen at NAFOA. Like NAFOA is a great organization, love their event, but one thing that sticks out is that there's not a lot of native people in these executive positions, even for their tribes. and you can come in with like the greatest, like a heart of gold, and say, I want to help tribes do this. But if you really don't understand tribes, sometimes you can be working at a detriment. Like I had a good conversation with some people that manage funds, and they were happy, positive, happy-go-lucky, but they were just there to kind of like earn tribal business. They didn't really know anything about the tribes.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, it was like kind of difficult to explain to them the vast differences between that tribe over there and where they
Yeah.
get their money, and this tribe over here, and why tribe A doesn't invest in this area and why tribe B does. Or
But that said, I got to say, I want to make sure that I recognize our allies out there, non-natives who are either working for tribes or in this business, who, yeah, not only do they have a heart of gold, they're in, and to the extent that it's kind of like, dang, you're like outdoing, some folks from that are enrolled members of that tribe, like that aren't working as hard. I know I was talking to a guy who, heads up an institution, and he's like, man, we just try to get some of the enrolled members into our management program, and I don't know, they won't stick it out. Like, it's not like we're not going to pay them really well, and we want them to lead this. Like, I'm not going to be around forever. I'm not from this tribe. Like, when I'm gone, I'm gone. I talked to the CEO for one of the big tribal enterprises, and he was like, I asked him a question. I said, how much of your time do you spend on the technical side of this business, which is a very technical one? I mean, it involves engineering and, all kinds of analysis. And I was like, how much time do you spend on the technical side of the business versus, working with tribal council to explain where the business is at? And he's like, easily 75% with tribal council, and I have to re-educate. And all the attaboys that I've had over my 15-year career, can get wiped out with one, oh crap, when something goes wrong. So I understand that I could be out of here at any minute if I don't continue to perform and the business doesn't continue to perform, but we've done really well. And I said, well, what would you tell a young tribal member who approaches you and says, hey, I really like what you've done with the business. It's going really well, and I'm running for tribal council. And, how would you advise me? What would you tell me? And he said, I would tell that young candidate, I would say, come sit with me, come learn the business, because it means a lot more coming from you to the rest of the membership about what needs to happen with the business than it comes from me. And I don't know, sometimes I'm stuck on that, because it seems like sometimes tribal councils will listen to, the outside white guy and give them more credit than kind of their own community member who actually knows something. So, I think there's a role for everybody. And I've definitely been mentored by, non-Indians who have just said, hey, I'm committed. I'm going to do this. I'm not from here. I don't expect to be, accepted into the community, but I'm just going to do this because, I love it, and I want to do something good. And so it takes all of us, but there, in terms of people exploiting people, like, I mean, there have been some natives that have kind of, exploited their own tribes. I mean, we're just all human. So I think it really comes down to those relationships again, and, being able to kind of get to know folks at a personal level, at a business level. And then you don't really know until you actually, work on a deal together. And then you really find out. So it takes all of us. And yeah, I mean, it's easy to point the finger and say, these guys haven't done this, or they haven't done that, or they're really green, or they don't really understand, or, they should do more. But then you could just point the finger at ourselves. I was like, why don't we just do more? Why don't we do it? And that's what Veronica's bank said. It was like, we're just going to do it. That's what we did. And like I said, there's about 70 of us around the country who are doing the same thing, small organizations like ours. They're just like, we're just going to do it ourselves.
I think people need to like demystify the idea of finance and financial literacy, because I'm an investment advisor. There are certain things that I will just punt on and ask Veronica. Like it doesn't even like Veronica is a very successful woman, And I know that she probably has better things to do with her day than answer like some question about mortgages that I have or how a loan breaks down. But she does take the time out of her day to like break things down in layman's terms for me. So, I mean, even though I should be a financial professional, there are times when it's just like, you know what, it's better just to ask someone that's just more seasoned in this area, because I don't want to screw things up.
Yeah, I think just adding on to that conversation too that Dave just ended was like, we need more of our people to go into business, like get business degrees. It's so hard finding people who major in any type of business, like avenue. And we're having such a tough time filling positions here at the bank, because there's just, it's almost it's needed to understand just some of the basic things that we do at the bank. And yeah, I'm always trying to recruit.
So here's some trivia. We talked about number of native banks. Okay, so any guesses on how many native law programs there are out there versus how many native business schools are out there? Any
Law
guesses?
schools? I think I knew this. 7, 6, maybe even 4.
Any other guesses?
Law schools?
Yeah, law schools where you can get an Indian law certificate, or
I would probably
specialize in native law.
4.
45.
I would say 20.
I would say like 15.
All right, there's 22 in 17 different states.
Okay, that's not bad.
Now, how many native business schools are there where you can specialize in native business?
I think 1, and I don't even know if it's still there.
I have never heard of one.
Yeah,
So
there's exactly one, and it's up at Gonzaga, and they don't even advertise it.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
They have the MBA program, right?
Yeah, they
For
got
Native
an
Americans?
MBA program.
Yep. Native focus.
And,
Actually, I knew that. I
Nice.
forgot about that.
But the thing that's funny about it is they don't even advertise a program. And the lady who's running it, at least the time that I talked to her, wasn't native. And I was like, "What are you doing? I'm like, how many?" And she's like, "No, we don't advertise this. This is just kind of for handpicked individuals associated with the tribes that are in the area."
Yeah.
Like,
These are for the ones that are going to exploit natives only, like all non-natives are going to exploit. We're going to use natives, so that's who we're gravitating around.
Dang.
That's
Well,
our
what
recruitment.
does that say, right? What does that say? Why do we, I mean, if you ask any elected tribal leader, what tribal sovereignty means, they usually cobble together a fairly accurate answer. If you ask someone on tribal council about the time value of money, or, one of these $5 words, right? It's like deers, in the headlights. And that's a problem, right? And I think the reason that happened is because, natives had to lawyer up pretty quickly because English canon law was being used to exploit tribes and take land. And so, you've got this long history of people actually, and African Americans too, right? Frederick Douglass, I mean, kind of caught on real quick. Is like, I better understand these people's laws because these laws are being used to kill us. And so I think that happened first, and then finance came later, and finance was different, right? Rather, they were withholding finance and access to cash and credit and the financial systems that they brought to what's now the United States. And so on the one hand, they were using, English canon law as a weapon, and they were withholding the tool of finance from tribes. And so I think we got a lot of catch up to do, but it goes back to that issue of we got to do this ourselves. We can't be afraid of it. We've got, we got a lot of, if you look at people who go to college, right? We got a lot of folks who go to masters in social work, because we got a lot of social work that needs to get done. We got a lot of nurses, because that's kind of part of taking care of people, and people need to get taken care of. But we overlook kind of the business and finance side of it. And then how many mentors do we have? How many people out there do we have that are kind of saying, "Hey, come in, we'll take you under our wing and we'll teach you this stuff." I mean, we already know that, there aren't many there. So again, we got to build it for ourselves. And I think having these conversations is big. I remember a professor of mine had wrote a book about Alcatraz, which was a takeover of Alcatraz back in the 70s. And one of the things that he talks about in that is, this is before internet, right? Is that the letters that were being written between the tribal, not elected tribal leaders, but kind of those rebellious aimsters right? They were writing to each other, talking about philosophy, talking about Indian values, talking about what it means to be sovereign, what it means to be Mohawk like Hank Adams, what it means, what those values mean, and kind of sharing that information. And they were doing that by writing letters to each other, right? And then they were organizing, everything that happened at Wounded Knee in 73, and then Alcatraz, after that. And then all the little kind of fishing rights battles that were happening up in the Great Lakes area, everything that's happening with access to water, with voting, gaming, that's all Native people kind of coming together and saying, we got a problem here and we better kind of come together around this, because no one's going to take care of this if we don't take care of it ourselves. And so I think that's what we're doing here. And what we need to do more of is just like, let's just have the conversation, let's rely on each other. Yeah. I mean, Delmar, go ahead and call V and just say, hey, I got this question and I feel stupid and no one else is going to answer it for me. And, let's just rely
Call
on each
me,
other
man.
like that.
I think,
Let's
yeah,
go
I
on
think
YouTube.
you're touching on like something that like that's one of the biggest misconceptions in like tribal communities surrounding banking and financing. They think they view it as bad for some reason. I think it's just because we have a history of doing bad business. So it's like there's this expectation of, you're going to steal money from me. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to do it. And I think we just need to maybe become more comfortable with that.
I heard a term called, I didn't know this term, but I learned it recently. I probably should have known it. The term is trauma response, which means that people act out in ways that have nothing to do with what's in front of them and everything to do with what happened to them, way back when, that still hurts. And I think that's what happens with money. That's why I call it the money demon, right? Because it's scary and we haven't talked about these things. And the memories that we do have of our getting screwed, right? Like what's your first memory of money? Think about it. What's your first memory of money? Is it a happy one?
Yeah, buying pop at the store.
Yeah, buy
Candy.
popcorn, pickles,
Going to the
slush
gas
puppies,
station, yeah.
nachos. But my money was actually food stamps, to be honest. So I didn't understand the like finance. Like food stamps to me was
it the actual stamp?
yeah, it was actually I remember was it the blue one I always wanted or the red one? I don't know, but it's like $10. So I didn't understand the dollar value though until later on. And I was like, damn, I got $1 now. Hey.
Well, before we get off the topic, let's just, wrap it up, Dave. What's the, what's the thing you want people to take away from all this? And, what is your, what do you want people to know basically after all this whole conversation?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and this goes for everyone, right? I mean, this goes for folks who might be potential investors, whether you're a philanthropist. We come across a lot of people who are fourth, fifth generation wealth, and they want to do something good, right? They haven't necessarily, gotten that money through, that money came to them from some kind of industry that their relatives have come to, and they, there's a lot of kind of thinking there is like, what do we do with this? How can we do something good here? Same thing with folks working at big banks and other institutions, to say like, we should do something here. Like Indian country is still here, and we're not doing enough there. And then likewise with tribal leaders and even our own relatives, is kind of like, I think the answer is, we've got to do this for ourselves. We don't need to fear it. We can confront the money demon and confront our own difficulties that we may have had in the past, but we can only do it if we make the effort and we do it together. So, I mean, I think all of us here are have the potential to do that. And I would just say, let's keep it going. Let's have the conversation. Sometimes they're going to be tough conversations. But there are professionals like Veronica that came through the private sector and doing good work at that bank. A lot of my colleagues around the country at nonprofit lending institutions like ours, we're ready to have the conversation. We're ready to kind of take this to the next level and, ask our relatives and our tribal leadership to come along with us and to help create those opportunities because we all know people who are suffering, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I mean, that's real suffering. This work right here, it's not hard. I mean, it's technically difficult sometimes, but those people who are really suffering, that's hard. And so it's a privilege to do this work. And I think we just need to get at it, so that we can get to a better place, all of us.
What about you, Veronica? Any final thoughts?
Sure. Yeah. I think I can probably just speak to like the individual listener, themselves. If you're interested, or if you're going to college, like take an intro to business course, major in business. There's accounting, finance, marketing. There's like so many different avenues that you could go down, and really, go down that avenue and try to work in Indian country on the business side. It's really, really interesting. And you're not necessarily pigeonholed into doing one single thing. What I do, I have, borrowers who are fishermen up in Alaska, and I know a lot about the salmon fishing schedule throughout the year. And, then I have, housing authority projects where I know a lot about construction and construction financing. And it's really cool. It's really interesting. I think maybe a lot of people view it as a very like capitalistic nature or mindset, but like what Dave was just saying, you can be in this space and actually do good work for your people and feel good about the work you do, instead of, doing some type of predatory lending or engaging in those types of practices. So I would really just advocate, like, we need more business leaders. I think we're good on lawyers, so change your major.
Nice.
I agree with you on that. There's too many native lawyers now. That's really true. I've heard that many times. Yeah.
So Hirsch, are you a capitalist now? Now that you've heard this argument, you're gonna convert to capitalism?
I'm married. I'm both. I'm gonna go both ways.
But thank you, Dave. Thank you for coming on here and like spending some time with us. You too, Veronica. It's always awesome to talk to you. And like I said, it's just always easy to just ask questions to you.
Yeah.
I like that. I like how comfortable you guys make it seem. And
Thanks,
it should
guys.
get comfortable.
Yeah. No, let's keep the conversation going, offline and out there in Indian country. And thanks, Veronica, for everything you do. And
so how do people find out more information, Dave, about you and your company and whatnot?
Yeah, check us out online. We'll drop an ad on the podcast here, but definitely check us out at nativecap.org. And you can give us a call, 855-628-2272. And we'd look forward to kind of talking with you about your business or your home.
And you have some YouTube videos coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to drop some YouTube videos, these little explainer videos that kind of give you a basic overview of whether it's financing your business, financing your home, or just kind of the do's and don'ts of credit. I mean, kind of getting into a little bit of the detail there, and just a little bit of information, a lot of stuff online. But go ahead and pick up the phone, give us a call. And Veronica too. I mean, we're all working together. It's all just, we all play different parts in this, and it's important that you get interested, learn something, and we're here to help.
Yeah, and I would definitely check out those videos on YouTube. Most people will probably watch them. You might pick up a couple of things, and it'll make the conversation a lot less stressful because you'll have some baseline knowledge to go off of, and you'll walk into these conversations more confidently. So
yeah, we can put those links on our social media when they come out, so people can easily find them. Veronica, what's your IG so everybody can follow you?
Not giving out my IG, but I will give you the website address to my bank. You can go to www.nativeamericanbank.com. And speaking about, just financial education, when you go to the website and you do the drop down for products, there is a financial education link. We partner with this company called Everfi, and we provide free modules that are like 2 to 5 minutes long. And it'll just give quick overviews, provide really helpful information. They're all free. So you can just go out to the website and check them out too.
Mhm.
If you have any questions about our services or what we offer, send an email to info@nabna.com. Thank you.
Yeah, Hirsch, go watch those videos.
Yeah, Hirsch, educate
Hey,
yourself.
no, it's true. Take an opportunity. This is a really good opportunity to really invest, like understand financial. Like I have to learn the wrong way. And for you younger ones that are listening right now, really take the opportunity to understand like the financial, ins and outs of buying a vehicle or investing into anything. I learned the hard way.
I still can't believe you let him repo you.
No, it was a voluntary.
I know,
Voluntary.
but
Voluntary.
you could have.
I was dumb and I didn't
Refinance.
care. I just didn't want to pay $700 a month.
Dang,
you
$700
probably
for a
could've
car.
For a 2010 Chevy Malibu. Come on.
Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
hot car back then, though.
Yeah. It was hardcore. But yeah, I definitely learned a lot, to be honest. Thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
We'll
Thanks,
continue dialogue for sure, though.
All right.
Thank you for inviting me, Dave. Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great rest of your night, and we'll have some more content about. We'll have Dave's commercials on our next episode. So
I can't wait.
can't wait too. It's gonna be exciting. Oh, we're gonna have 100th episode next week. Oh yeah, Dave, you guys got any shout outs?
Oh yeah, you got any shout outs?
Yeah, I mean, again, just kind of going on this thing of doing it together. Some of my folks that have been on my board, Ben Navumsa, former chairman of Hopi Tribe, Kiva Institute, Vanessa Roanhorse, which is affiliated with Native Women Lead. They're doing amazing work.
Nice.
And also Liz Gamboa at New Mexico Community Capital, the Native Entrepreneur in Residence Program. You got to check them out. It's a great program for any entrepreneurs out there, as well as Heather and Jess over at Change Labs up in Tuba City. They just provide great technical assistance on everything to do with small business development. So a lot of great folks out there supporting this work. We're on the finance side. They do the technical assistance side of it and the community support, and they're just doing amazing work. So yeah, definitely check all of those folks out.
Nice.
What about you, Veronica? You got any shout outs?
Dave stole all of them. Just kidding. Probably just shout out all of my board on Native Women Lead, because I'm a board member there too, and to Jamie and Alicia for all of the phenomenal work they do. Be on the lookout for some of the loan funds they're going to offer to Native women entrepreneurs. Those will be released here soon. And the cool thing about them is they're really getting away from viewing like the traditional credit application for women entrepreneurs. And so that's really cool and exciting and I'm looking forward to that. So shout out to them. Man, I should have wrote a list of shout outs. So that's about it. All of my NAB coworkers, y'all rock.
Oh,
Nice.
I got one more. Sorry. And the
Go ahead.
Southwest Native Assets Coalition. That's a new group that's coming online just to do small dollar debt consolidation loans here in the Southwest. So check them out too. And you can check them out on our website. We got them all posted. So thanks for that. Yeah, it's a group effort here, folks. It's going to take all of us.
Way,